Hey guys, welcome to Pro Gun. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate that. If you're new to optics, or you're thinking about getting your first optic, there's some things you need to know. We're going to cover everything you should know about red dots, what features to look for, and what I would recommend. Now, the first thing you're going to hear is the term MOA. And that's very important. And what MOA stands for is minute of angle. And what that means is how much area that dot will cover at 100 yards. So, for instance, a 1 MOA will cover a 1-inch target at 100 yards. 3 MOA will cover 3 inches at 100 yards, etc. The most common MOA size is a 3 MOA, and that's my recommendation because a 3 MOA will cover 3 inches at 100 yards, and it's large enough to see clearly, and I just find it to be the best overall size. The next thing you're going to hear is the footprint, and what that means is if you're going to have a optic on your firearm, the slide needs to be optic ready. And when you take the cover off, your slide is going to have a series of holes and little studs on it that match the bottom of the optic so that you could mount it directly without an optic plate. And the most common optic cuts are RMR, RMSC, Delta Point Pro. So they may either fit directly or you may require a mounting plate. I have certain firearms that I just happen to like the optic and it didn't match the footprint on my slide, so I went out and I bought an optic adapter plate and it worked fine. If you can, you are better off getting a direct mount. The adapter plates may just add a little bit more height to it. So it would always be better if you can get an optic that's a direct fit and you don't have to worry about an adapter plate. Now, some of the features to look for are auto or manual brightness. I personally would go for manual brightness, and the main reason for that is I learned my lesson the hard way. My first optic I bought, I went and I got an auto brightness, and I found out that auto brightness does not work in the dark. It works in bright light, it works in low light, it does not work in no light. The auto brightness needs ambient light to adjust itself. With the manual, you can turn it on and crank it up in the dark, and it works perfectly. And then you have the color. You have red or green. If you have astigmatism, a green dot is much better. I have astigmatism, and I find green dots do work better, but I do have some reds. The brightness settings should have at least 8 daytime and 2 night vision, and the lens should be glass, not plastic, and it should be clear. The housing should be made out of aluminum, not polymer. The next most important thing is the battery location. Preferably you'd get a side-mounted battery or even a top-mounted where it would go in here. But I really do not like bottom-mounted batteries because you need to take the optic off to change the battery, and that's just really a pain in the neck to do that. And then sometimes you're going to have to zero in the optic all over again, and it's just a pain in the ass doing that. And then the battery life, typically 50,000 hours seems to be the benchmark these days. So I would look for that. Should be waterproof, and preferably have the shake awake feature. I like that a lot. What the shake awake does is after a couple of minutes, the optic shuts itself off, and all you have to do is very slightly move it, and it turns back on again, just like that. Now, what would I recommend getting as a new purchaser of an optic? Well, one thing I learned is you don't need to spend a lot of money to get a good quality optic. So if it were me, that's what I would go with. I'd put the Zelissi optics against my Holosuns any day. Thanks for watching.